What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode. We are talking about the 2022 NFL draft. It was a crazy one with lots of trades. A lot of people went in different places that we thought they were going to go. So I am going to be dropping 8 new videos. I'm going division by division and talking about who I thought won the draft in the division and who I think lost the draft in the division. I'll be talking about each team, the picks I liked and the picks I did not like. So we are starting it off with the AFC North. And to me, I think it's clear cut, man, of who won this draft in the AFC North, and it is the Baltimore Ravens. When we look at the Ravens picks, they started off at the 14th pick and they go ahead and land Kyle Hamilton. For a long time, Kyle Hamilton was a, top 5 guy, maybe top 7. He started to fall for whatever reason. And the thing was, there wasn't a reason. There wasn't an injury concern. There wasn't a question about his character. It was kind of one of those things where, people knew he was good, but he wasn't the hot new toy. And he fell right into Baltimore's lap. The one thing that I'll say that, some people are like, oh, this is the new Ed Reed. And he doesn't play anything like Ed Reed. Ed Reed is truly one of a kind. Ed Reed is the greatest ball hawk we've ever seen in football. But Kyle Hamilton's a different guy, man. He's 6'4". We can see him play single high. We can see him come down in the box. We can see him man up in the slot. He really is like the defensive matchup cancel guy. He's going to be a guy who, if Najee splits out in Pittsburgh, he can go out and cover him. If he plays a good tight end like a Gronk or a Travis Kelce or George Kittle, he can slide out there. He brings a lot of different elements to what that defense can do. Also in the first round, they go and get Tyler Lindenball, which Lindenball is a zone specific center because he's a little undersized. Everybody has said he's one of the best center prospects to come out in a long, long time, but people were really concerned about a team having an offensive coordinator who ran a zone scheme, then they get a new offensive coordinator because that guy leaves or gets fired, and they have to stay into the zone scheme. We know Baltimore's bread and butter is a zone scheme. Their running backs fit that, their quarterback fits that, and no matter who's going to be coaching them, they're going to stay in a zone scheme as long as Lamar Jackson's there, and I'm pretty sure Baltimore wants to keep Lamar Jackson for a long time. This is a very athletic center. He's a guy who can do a whole lot of things. No, he's going to have trouble if this were 2000 and he's standing across from, a Casey Hampton or a Vince Wilfork. He's gonna have his hands full. But those kind of days are done. You know what I mean? He's not going to face a whole lot of guys that are those big maulers. I'm sure they can protect him in those kind of schemes. Baltimore goes out in the second round, gets David Ajobo, who was going to be a top 20 pick until he blew out his Achilles. And, he's going to be a guy who we probably won't see this year. If we do see him, it's going to be really limited late in the year. But it's a great pick for someone to get that pass rush present, who Baltimore actually is kind of missing a little bit since Charles Suggs really took that step off. They haven't had that elite guy. They're hoping Ajobo can be that. They go on the third round, get a Travis Jones, another big, huge nose tackle type player. We know Baltimore has an dependency for wanting to run almost a double nose tackle to really free up their linebackers. So I really like this draft for the Baltimore Ravens. My second place team is, I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm not trying to be a homer here or anything like that. I don't love the Kenny Pickett pick necessarily. I'm always with the 20th pick. I would have liked Malik Willis. I know that he went in the third round, didn't even go in the second round. But I like the idea of the higher ceiling, the lower floor. But hey, listen, these guys are paid a whole lot of money to make these decisions, and they're a lot smarter than me. Kenny Pickett did a lot of really good things. I'm just I was a little apprehensive on a Joe Burrow too when he came out, having one great year of production. I'm a little apprehensive on Kenny Pickett. I think he brings things to the table. Pittsburgh should know him better than any other team. You know what I mean? So clearly they like their guy. They were willing to trade up 5 picks with the Houston Texans up to 15 to grab Kenny Pickett. So that was their guy. So awesome. They got him. They got in the second round, get George Pickens, who, if he didn't have the ACL injury, was going to be a first round pick. The guy is immensely talented. We saw what he did to Daxton Hill, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. Just blew him up off the line of scrimmage and hushed up the Michigan sideline. He can go up and get the ball. He's got a little bit of a thin frame, but he's a big receiver, is a pretty good route runner. He's a guy that really hasn't put the pieces together yet. But if he can, and he has that ability, Pittsburgh's going to get the most from him. We know Pittsburgh knows how to draft a receiver. They go out and get DeMarvin Leal. I believe it's pronounced Leal. He seems like a guy who, this is just my take, I haven't really heard this too much. He rushed from the edge a lot. this past season at Texas A&M, but people think he has the frame to kind of move into more of an interior defensive lineman. So what I'm kind of thinking is Pittsburgh doesn't really have anything outside of Hightower or Highsmith and TJ Watt. So I'm thinking that he's going to play on the outside a little bit this year, as their third, fourth pass rusher. But as time goes on, we don't know what the future of Tuitt looks like. Cam Hayward's getting up there in age, and he's going to kind of fall into that, that 3 tech, that 5 tech that Pittsburgh likes to run. So we're going to kind of see that. We'll probably see him interior, a little bit of sub packages this year too. Then in the 4th round, they get Calvin Austin III, who I always loved guys like this. Like when Pittsburgh drafted Drury Archer a handful of years ago, he was an absolute bust, but I love those guys who are fast. You can run a lot of gadget stuff with them. And I actually really do think this guy's a good receiver. Like he's not just a guy who relies on his athletic skill. We heard, the 4th overall pick, the 2nd corner taken, Sauce Gardner said the hardest guy he had to match up against in his college career was Calvin Austin III. He's really, really shifty. We saw him play on the outside a lot, like way more than you expect for a guy who's 5'7", 170 pounds. But he can line out there occasionally. He's going to be a slot guy. We know Pittsburgh likes to run a lot of jet sweeps and gadget things. I think he's a great play toy to give to a young quarterback in Kenny Pickett. And then we see them get Connor Hayward, who's going to be kind of that flex back, tight end, fullback kind of area. And obviously his brother plays on the team. So that was a fun pick in itself. The 3rd, I had the Cincinnati Bengals. I really liked the pick, and I was kind of interested with the pick of Daxton Hill. I'm a big Daxton Hill fan. And I like the idea that he's kind of, he's listed as a safety. In some places he's listed as a corner. He's really like a different kind of matchup piece than a Kyle Hamilton. He's a guy who can hawk the ball. He's willing to come downhill, and him and Jesse Bates are going to have a lot of fun playing off of one another because they can both kind of do a lot of this similar things. So I was kind of surprised with that pick, but I like it. I would have liked it even more if like they didn't have a Mike Hilton in the slot. Because that's where I kind of imagine he's going to play a lot in that slot, underneath zones. But clearly they have a plan for him, and I love the player, man. They go out and get Cam Taylor-Britt, which is a corner from Nebraska. Cincinnati did get beat up in the pass game a little bit last year. We saw them get exposed in Kansas City for a little bit. And that's an area that they're looking to shore up. And I think that's a really smart move. They go in the 3rd round and get a Zachary Carter, who's a big, strong defensive end. He's going to be a great rotational piece right off the bat. And then they go out and get Cordell Volson, the guard from North Dakota State. And when we look at that, they need to shore up that offensive line. We saw a few years ago, injury decimation just absolutely killed them. Ended up getting Joe Burrow hurt. Joe Burrow had a lights out season last year. I mean, absolutely put himself on the map as a marquee quarterback, a top 3, a top 5 guy. So you need to protect the franchise. And I caught a lot of flack from Cincinnati fans last year, and I get it. Penei Sewell was not nearly as good as Jamar Chase. And I understand that. But still, at the end of the day, Joe Burrow got sacked 70 times last year. You just can't take that risk. We saw Andrew Luck have a lot of success, and then his career was cut very short because he was like, I can't take this physical punishment anymore. You can't have that to Joe Burrow. I wish they almost would have addressed it maybe in the 3rd round. Maybe there wasn't a guy that they necessarily liked. They did go out and get some guys in free agency. So hopefully that offensive line's a little shored up. And then the worst draft in the AFC North I thought it was the Cleveland Browns. And you had to put an asterisk next to it because they got Deshaun Watson, who's not a part of their draft, but is also kind of a part of their draft. So they didn't have a 1st or 2nd round pick, but in the 3rd round, they go out and get Martin Emerson. He's a tough corner from Mississippi State. He's a guy who I think can plug and play pretty much immediately. And also in the 3rd round, because they had 3 3rd-round picks, they go out and get Alex Wright, the DN from UAB, who's kind of like a Zach Carter. He's another big, strong guy who has a frame to maybe put on a little bit more muscle. They haven't re-signed Davion Clowney yet. I mean, rumor is he's going to come back, so we're not exactly sure about that. But I think he's a guy who is going to get some playing time right off the bat. Almost like a DeMarvin Leal. I really like this 3rd-round pick in David Bell. He's a guy who's a highly productive wide receiver at Purdue. He's a guy who, didn't test super well. But who else didn't test very well? Was Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen was a 4.7 guy, and David Bell was a 4.6 guy, but I think he just kind of gets the small intricacies of playing receiver at that high of a level. So I'm really excited to kind of see him work with a Deshaun Watson, and I really just have this gut feeling Will Fuller's going to end up landing in Cleveland. It just kind of makes sense with his old teammate, Deshaun Watson, who when Fuller was healthy, they had a lot of success. So I think, David Bell can kind of play that Jarvis Landry kind of role in that area. I also really like their 4th-round pick, and they get Perrion Winfrey, who kind of reminds me of like a Malik McDowell, where he's a super high upside. He's got the low floor where he might end up just kind of not having it, right? But he's a guy who caused at times a lot of chaos at Oklahoma. So he's a guy that's really, really fun. And if you catch on that pick and you end up re-signing Jadeveon Clowney, and you end up having Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, and then the interior pressure from a Perrion Winfrey, whew, man, that makes that back end with Denzel Ward, a Martin Emerson, a Newsome, that's going to make them look very, very dangerous in that back end. So that defense could take a little bit of a leap, and we know what Deshaun Watson is capable of. So all in all, I thought the AFC North had a pretty good draft. And honestly, as a whole in the NFL, I don't think there was anybody that really had like this truly treacherous draft. There's a few picks that you kind of make you scratch your head, and there's a few guys who fell where you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they fell and this team landed them. And that's a lot about how I feel about the Baltimore Ravens draft. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you liked it, make sure you click like and subscribe. Help support the show, man. We just hit over 2,000 about a month ago. So please continue to, help support the show. You can check out my Patreon, drop a few bucks. Anything helps, man. Just helps kind of take this show to the next level. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you next time.